Hello and welcome to the Brynka Beacon. The presentation is going to be starting momentarily. We'll be addressing lockers everywhere. We'd like to welcome all of our attendees to the Brynka Beacon.
Hey.
Our presentation will be starting.
Hey, Joe.
Okay, we're going to be starting our presentation. Thank you everyone for joining us to this month's Brynka Beacon. This is our first fall episode of 2019, and this is a free online webinar designed for providing education for mail centers. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to enter them into the question box, and we'll be answering them throughout our presentation today. So now let's introduce who we have online today. I am Jennifer Young, Director of Sales for Brynka, and I'll be your host for this month's Brynka Beacon. We also have online Brenda Fick, our President, as well as Joe Martinez, our Vice President and Organizer. But today we have some very special guests with us as well. From Bucknell University, we have Tom Lydon, who's a director there. He's been there for 8 years and has 15 years of higher education experience in print and mail. We also have Dana Kemberling. She's been with Bucknell for 6 years and has 24 years experience in student mail services. And Bucknell University is a private liberal arts school in Lewisburg, PA, and has been a long-standing Brynka customer for over 12 years. Over this past summer, they've installed 500 intelligent package lockers and mail file folder systems on their campus with Brynka. So welcome, everyone. Now, we'd like to hear about this new and improved student experience. Brenda, would you like to start us off?
So the first thing we're going to do is have a poll. And the question is, who currently still has mail boxes? Physical mail boxes.
So a poll box will be popping up on your screen, and you can go ahead and click yes or no. And as those results come in, we'll go ahead and read them to everyone as we start our presentation here with Tom and Dana. Okay, great. Joe, do we have the results from our poll? While we get the results to the poll up, we'll go ahead and start our presentation. Why don't we take a look at our next slide? Okay, we have the results to our poll up. We have 67% are still using mailboxes, 17% are still using mailboxes but do not have as much volume, and 17% are not using mailboxes. So thank you so much for answering that poll. We're going to go ahead and start our presentation with Brenda Fick and Tom and Dana. Over to you, Brenda.
Okay, thank you, Jen. So this is obviously before. These are all the mailboxes that were at Bucknell University. Joe, can you go on to the next slide? So some of the questions and the decisions that were made. Let's start with what started the conversation of implementing intelligent package lockers at Bucknell University. Tom, do you want to tell us how that decision, and let's answer these questions first.
Sure. Thanks, Brenda. So just to share what happened with us, our experience, it was around 2016, the university announced that they were going to increase the student enrollment by about 200 over a course of so many years. So looking down at the aspect of adding 20 to 50 a year, we quickly realized we didn't have enough traditional mailboxes. So that kind of started the conversation. And we decided we had to make a decision on whether we were going to add additional traditional mailboxes or go with something new. So that's when we started looking at the data and started noticing that when we looked at our data that we had been collecting, that between 2008 and 2016, our package counts had doubled. We were at about 48,000 a year, and we were easily by 2016 99,000 or 100,000 at that point. So when we were talking about package lockers, we really decided that we needed to flip student mail kind of on its head and put the packages out and bring the mail to the counter. Let me see. So, and along with that also, the letter mail had decreased about equally. It was about half the amount that we were tracking in 2008. So, we knew we had to make a change. To the question about the challenges, obviously for us, we had to renovate the space so that you saw on the slide prior with all our mailboxes. We needed to renovate that and put the mail package lockers out there. Along with that, obviously there was funding, and also there was the timing of when the renovation would happen. I mean, the only window we really thought we could do it in was the summer. So that was tough, even with the timing, to get that all done. So this is our first semester in, and we have really successful story here, but it was a big change for us, a big workflow change. Last thing I'd add there also is with letter mail, bringing it behind the counter. We did work with our general counsel here on campus so that we could only deliver first-class mail and not the pre-sort mail that we were getting. We were getting many trays of that, and that took a lot of time and also would have made it difficult to do a high-density file system like we do now.
Okay, great. If anyone has any questions at this point, you can go ahead and type them in.
We'll go to the next slide, Joe. So the next step was kind of the decision about how many lockers and how and where we were going to put them in the architect. So kind of explain what we pulled together with all of the architect drawings and design. How did that happen?
So if you can, maybe the pictures are small, but you can see on the left, there's three kind of iterations of our space. The top one is in orange, is our current space with the circle showing where the mailboxes were. So we working with Brynka, we determined based on our packages that were incoming that 500 lockers was the right fit. So the next step was to look at that space, so that space kind of highlighted in gray in the middle picture, and determine how we were going to configure those 500 lockers. Now, ultimately, the bottom picture, what we ended up doing was we actually had a wall. I don't know if it's hard to describe, but there was a wall there dividing our mailbox space from a student hearth space. And maybe you'll see that in a picture later. But what we ended up doing was facilities, actually, we took that wall down and we have now very good access to the lockers. So you can see on that last picture, you can see there's actually 4 walkways in from the student space, as well as our original entrance that you saw on the first slide to the right. So it really changed the space. We did have conversations with other people on campus to see how that would impact them as well, but everyone was in favor of it. It was a great move.
So let's go to the next slide. And we have another poll. So, have you started having internal conversations about lockers? Yes, starting to talk about it now. No, haven't started chatting about it. Or ready to start the process. So I'll take a quick 30 seconds for people to answer that. Oh, that was quick. Wow, 94. That's good. So thank you for answering that poll. And so now we're going to go back to Bucknell. And let's go to the next slide.
Brenda, this is Joe. Before we move on to the next slide, I have 2 questions from the audience. The first one is, how many students do you serve? This is, I guess, for Tom and Dana at Bucknell.
We're just under 4,000 students.
Okay. And the other question is, so you only get first class mail and no standard?
Correct. We don't deliver any of the pre-sort standard nonprofit delivered to resident occupants. We do not deliver any of that mail to the mail folders.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now we can move on.
So I think we kind of went through that just a little. So let's talk about, we replaced 3,700 mailboxes, which we had for every student. So why did we decide on 500 mail folders?
Well, we all know by attending the past conferences, Markham's and NACM's, the importance of benchmarking, and it gets drilled in us, the importance of accuracy and benchmarking data. So it was great that we had past data and did studies of in the past with the mail being a lot, and then now like the mail is decreasing and the packages were increasing. We did a study on the daily mail volumes, the number of first class pieces compared to the standard nonprofit. We took a bunch of samples of the junk mail, as we call it, and I presented them to Tom, and he showed some people and general counsel just why we don't need to deliver that, and it doesn't necessarily pertain to anything with the education of the students, just junk catalogs and advertisements and that type of thing. So we also got good feedback from other universities and colleagues that had similar enrollments such as us. And then Brynka's reporting helped too, because I use that a lot to extract Excel reports and from the Brynka history. So that's why we decided on 500.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. So it's interesting how it was 500 mail folders, but we also decided on 500 smart lockers. So again, we can kind of talk about the population and how many we receive. Bucknell, how many did you receive kind of last year that we kind of looked at?
Okay, well, our enrollment is close to 4,000. And again, from benchmarking and everything, the past data showed that we were averaging about 500 packages a day, 1,200 to 1,500 a day during the start of the semesters. So that's what led us to believe that 500 would be kind of a good start. And we had thought, well, we could at least refill the lockers a couple times a day, or once a day during the non-peak times. And of course, at the beginning of this semester, we did have 2 days where we had around 2,000 packages a day. But for the most part, as we're slowing down here, 500 is the ultimate number, we feel. And it was just from past data, Brynka helping us, Tom doing all his reporting. And that's how we came to that number.
Very good. So it's a good number. So let's go on to the next slide. So the next exercise that we had to do was the notification flow, because now we have letter mail, we have oversized packages that won't fit in the locker, and then we have what will go into the locker. So how did we, Tom, can you tell us about the new notification and kind of how we set it up?
Sure. So I have to frankly admit, I'm not in student mail every day. I oversee some other areas as well. So when we were going through this exercise, it really helped me to see a visual of how the notification path went. So if you look at the top, it's just showing, like Brenda said, each kind of group that we kind of cut them into that shape. And then what happens at each decision-making process. So each of the first is the message number 1 for that path. If it doesn't get picked up, then what happens? And then there's a 24, like the right side is the locker path. So they get a message when we put the package in, and we had to actually write that message, which you'll see, I think, on the next slide. Then if they don't pick up, in 24 hours, they have a reminder. If they don't pick up, what happens? So for me, it was really beneficial to see how this was actually going to happen and what messages were going to go to the students. One thing that also really helped is we were doing repeat emails, like that they would get reminders in our current system that you still have a package here. So one thing Brynka did for us, which was great, which was to add a estimated return date. So once you get a reminder, then you actually are told that within 3 weeks, and they get a date, this will be sent back. So that happens, they get that message a few times. But just the fact that Brynka was able to add that date in there, I think really helped us. So we really appreciated that.
Thank you, Tom. And that again, I mean, the nice thing is that we were able to personalize things and kind of do things the way that Bucknell really needed. So the next is the lockers and creating that design. How did that happen, the design and the implementation for it?
So what you'll see in the pictures later is that the way we handled the lockers is that we needed 6 unique banks of lockers. So we wanted each bank to have its own individual kind of name and also a look, so that when the student received their email to say, go to Bank 3 Ambition, they would know that where to go. So we have graphic designers within our division in communication, so they did some proofs, they made different looks, and ultimately the look that you're about to see was the one that was approved by our VP and others that they thought it was appropriate. The wording, each one has its own name, so that was a challenge. So we ended up pulling words from the university's mission statement, so that we kind of had that theme going through, and that seemed to be a hit with everyone we proposed it with ahead of time.
So I think now we have a look at the email, the personalized email notifications. So let's talk a little bit about the notifications, because there was a lot of things that we needed to do from Luxor 1 had a certain way, and we changed it all to meet basically how we wanted to design and put this email notification, because they did have different names. So how did that come about? How did we do that?
So again, a lot of credit to Brynka and Luxor 1. We were able to brand this email to look like Bucknell so that students, would understand it is coming from us. Initially, it did say Luxor 1, but we were able to make that change. And then the messaging from that notification workflow is what we brought into here. So the notification workflow kind of set the groundwork, and then we were able to put that into the email. So it's hard to read, but it tells them which locker location, and it also gives them the access code and the QR code they can show at the screen. The picture on the left is your first email. So it says you received a package, come to row number 6, dedication. And the one on the right is an email that's 24 hours later saying you still have a package and it'll be here for 24 additional hours. One thing at the bottom of the email, if you can see, we do have a link to update their cell phone records. I will say university was really excited. I wasn't sure if they were going to be excited, but they were pretty excited that we actually had a mechanism for collecting their cell phone records, because the university actually would like to collect them for other purposes as well. So when a student goes to that link, they go to the university's cell phone update page, and there's a notice there that says this will be used for these purposes, including your package system. But the university was very excited, thinking that students are really going to participate and put their phone numbers in for packages, and they'll be able to leverage that for other purposes as well. So I think Brenda and I were looking at that pretty recently, and there's been a pretty high participation rate with that.
Yeah, I think you're up above 90% have actually clicked on it and entered their cell number. So that's a pretty good percentage.
Well, and before we get to pickup rates later, I think that increase in cell phone has definitely helped us with pickup rates, because now they're getting text messages as well. And over the course of a few weeks, our pickup rate has really improved.
Great. So let's go. So this is a time lapse of how the wrap was placed on the locker. So it's just a 1-minute time lapse. So please enjoy. So I apologize, music is not on, but
Let me
Tom,
just
how
jump
long
in.
did it take them? How long did it take them to get all 6 lockers done?
Yeah, let me talk. So just a little background. So we were really excited to do the wrap. So we actually printed those and installed those with our own staff. Right where you're seeing is actually a member of facility staff who helps us with a lot of projects, and a couple of our staff in the department. Each locker bank, as you can see, it was pretty tedious to cut out each door. So I think we did 6 in the matter of, was it 4 days or so? So it did take quite a while, but we were really proud of the end result, and I think it just turned out great. So I really appreciate our staff doing as much as they did there, but it turned out awesome. But yeah, it was 4 days or so, I think.
It really does look great, Tom. I just wanted to add that you were very fortunate that you could do this yourself. Your own staff was able to do this. But for anybody that doesn't have that as an option for them, maybe they don't have a print center on campus or one that's capable of doing this, that is something that Brynka can also offer you as well. So anybody can have these branded to look exactly the way they'd like.
So obviously this is the final look, and this is looking from the mail services area that used to be full of 3,700 mailboxes. Now it's 500 lockers, and each one is separated. So the other nice reason that we did 6 separations is that it also separates the students so that they're not all going to one area. They're really separated. And even in real busy times, you can see that there's never a line with any of these lockers. They really go through very quickly, and it's really nice seeing the whole flow because they really don't have to wait in any line because we stagger the packages throughout. And then, of course, lastly, the touch screen. So this is another Bucknell logo and design, so that we took away the Luxor one and we put the design specifically for Bucknell and information about Bucknell on the kiosk screen. So that's what the student will touch to go into and pull their package. So we have one more video. Sure, go ahead.
Brenda, I just wanted to add to what you said about there not being any lines. I mean, until you see how the process works, the student actually receiving the package is such a fast process from them just showing their phone to the screen, signing, which that was something we learned late in the process, is that they actually do sign for it, get their package and go. It's really seconds. I mean, it's really fast. I don't know if this is the part to interject about this or not, but when we were first looking into it and we ended up going to Bloomsburg because they had a similar operation with package stores, lockers, until you see it, it is really hard to picture, you know, front loading. It was a big change for us, but really time-wise, it is very fast.
Yeah, I think we've done studies, and literally you can get that package in, I think, 3 to 5 seconds. It is very, very fast. And pickup literally is you show your phone and you sign for it. So it really works very well. So we have one more video that I think kind of goes through each one of the lockers. Joe, do you want to show that?
Yeah, I do have one question from the audience, and that was, and this is going back to the notifications. Does that second message go out automatically?
Yes.
The one for the package lockers does, right?
Yes, you still have a package, yes.
And I think there's some flexibility. I don't know if you want to talk about it, but there is some flexibility about when you send that reminder. We're doing it at 24 hours, but I think there is flexibility. You can do multiple, or you can do them at different times.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we may even do at the busier time is kind of let them know that maybe we go to 12 hours and then, you know, a faster amount of time that they get the reminders, and maybe don't hold it for 48. Because in the busy part, we're going to look at changing that so it's, you know, maybe 6 hours, maybe 12 hours, but we can change that time.
I have another question.
And the amount of times that we send it.
Yep, we have another question here. What brand lockers did you go with?
Those are Luxor One lockers.
Okay. And last question here. Do you input on the same screen system that students use to pick up packages?
You can do that, and you also, Brynka supplied us with some mini iPads that are paired to that same device. So you can use them. So a student could be picking up a package and you could be loading side by side. Sometimes we do, maybe even more than sometimes, we do use the kiosk that's right attached to the bank itself. But it's as simple as just hitting exit and a student picks up. It's very, the loading is very fast as well. So you're rarely out there more than how long would it take to load a cart? I mean, not long, right?
Not long at all. I would say 10 minutes, but
yeah, it's very fast process. So you can do it side by side on a different device, or you can do it at the kiosk.
Thank you.
So this is just another walkthrough. And as you can kind of see, yeah. Go ahead, Todd.
All right. So yeah, you can see the student space. The gaps that you're going to see between them are actually the wall that we opened up into the student hearth space. So that's a new access for the students to get to the lockers. Just as we're looking here, each bank has 83 doors. I think it's about 15 feet, just if you're trying to get some kind of perspective on it. And they're back to back.
We have another question from the audience. How do you handle ADA situations or other similar situations that you don't know about with regard to the height of the locker you assign?
Brenda, do you want to?
Yeah. So all of the middle lockers are ADA compliant. So if any student comes up to Bucknell and says that they need an ADA locker, that is put into the database. So as soon as they put a piece for that student, it will automatically assign the ADA door, meaning it has to be at a certain level above and a certain level below. One of the next phases that we will be implementing at Bucknell is for the hearing impaired as well, which will be placed in dedication, and it will have lights and hearing for the hearing and for the blind, so that they can actually hear voices and sounds and go to the right locker. And that will be done specifically at the dedication locker. So that's going to be in November. We'll be implementing that phase. So it's not only ADA, but it's also for the blind, which is something that Bucknell also wanted to make sure of.
I have another question. How often do you load the lockers? And when is the last attempt to load the lockers for the day? And is this location for the lockers open 24/7 to the students?
So when we were planning this process, I think our thought process was going to be, let's find the quietest times in this student space and just go out and load. What we found through actually living through the process was that loading is very fast. And just the way we're processing packages, we load them on carts, wire rack rolling carts. And once that cart's full and we can see the lockers have some space, we just take them out. So we find that the loading is fast enough that we're not as kind of cute with when we can go out there and load. So it's quite fast. We do load typically now right at the end of we load throughout the day, but we make sure we get as much out as we can before our students leave at 5:30. In the heavy time when we were getting 2,000 packages, one thing we did implement that I think we're going to do in the future for the starts of semesters is have student workers come back after hours, because we did get a lot of pickups through the dinner time rush. And we found that if we brought students in around 7 o'clock to load again, that was a good opportunity to have more picked up and get them out of our shop. So, so to answer the other question, the locker space is 24 hours, and our service counter is open 11:30 to 5:30. I don't know, did I miss a part of that question or not?
Nope, I think that was all of them. I do have some follow-ups here. One is also, how do you handle single students receiving multiple packages on a regular basis, i.e. same locker or multiple lockers?
That's a great question. So with the Luxor One system, we can actually, and Brynka also, we do get notified if there is a package in a locker. So if a student gets a package, even if they get a package in the morning and we load it into a locker, if we process another package, it will say, this student has a package in locker bank number 1. Would you like to add it to it? So what we do is we do sort packages that have another package out there that they could be paired with. We do kind of sort them in a different way so that we make sure we get them out there as fast as possible. So you can load multiple packages in the same locker door. That kind of helps them. They only get one code and they can come pick up multiple packages. And when the student comes to show their code, it does let them know you have 3 packages in here, and then the door opens. Sometimes packages are picked up so fast by the time we get the package out there, it is gone. That has happened. But we do pair as many as we can together to maximize how many of those lockers can hold.
Great. Another question here. It was mentioned it takes 10 minutes to load one of the rows. How many packages does that equal to? How many packages are held in the cart?
Well, it depends, because it depends on how many doors are available at that time. Right now, we're probably coming in the morning, and they're probably like 30 to 40, maybe 30% full. So we still have 65% or so that's available. So we bring packages out, and whatever's available, we just load. And if it's full or we fill it, we just go to the next one. Just kind of roll it over to the next one and keep going. So 83 total in a bank.
And the nice thing is, if we have, for the student staff, they could each take a cart. So sometimes we have 2 and 3 of our students with a cart at different banks, which makes it nice. And they're simultaneously putting all of that in. So we have yet to do any type of like accurate time study, but there's a lot of things yet that we need to like study. So that would be one of them. But I mean, ideally, we could have a student at each bank, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so another benefit to this system about having 6 banks and the way it's broken up is that if you come to a kiosk on number 6, the doors are only going to open on number 6, so it won't open on any other kiosk. So they are segregated in that way. But as we said before, your notification drives you right to the correct one. Now, if you go up to the wrong bank, say that you have a package in bank 1, but our student's loading goes to 3, that system won't know. So we do have to kind of sort it on its way out, that this is going to go to number 1. Brynka set it up so that our label that prints out as we label the packages does say which bank it's in. So it does help, and it's just depending on how your workflow goes, how do you sort those? But that's how we've been handling it.
I have another question here. How do you handle move-in with students sending packages before they arrive?
I don't know if you want to talk about that. That's probably our big.
Ask Brenda.
Do you want to tell them how many packages we had in the back? We tried to load them, but because the students weren't there, we literally we just held all of them in the back basically until they started on the 27th of August, right? So I think we had a total of 5,000 packages back there. And then Dana, we knew that the freshmen, right, were coming first, so we started loading all of the packages for the freshmen in the lockers first. And we were just loading the freshmen, right?
Yes. And students may begin sending packages August 1st. So depending on what day of the week that falls, like it was a Thursday, of course, that's just like approximate. So end of July, we were starting to get hit.
And this year, the school year started about a week later than typical, which we thought was a great thing for extra training time. And I think it was, but it also burned us because we had an extra week of accepting packages.
I have another question. Are the iPads linked to specific locker banks?
Yes, they're paired to an individual bank. So number 6 has one that's paired just directly to it. Well, one thing that we did that helped with that, though, is that we put a screensaver on, like the background image on the iPad matches the locker design, because that was one thing that we were trying to determine. How do we keep straight which one goes with which one? And, Brynka supplied them with a label on the back, but we weren't sure with the case if it would necessarily stay. So we put a screen background on it so that number 6 is right there on the screen. It's pretty handy.
Okay, that's all for questions right now.
I think I just wanted to add on this screen is that even though it was very busy when we first started, I mean, we had all hands on deck. I was down there, we were helping, that the student really received it so well. I mean, the students were so excited to get packages. I mean, even though it was really busy and we were running around like crazy, you kind of got a little high from hearing the students say how awesome it was, and they were so excited. And as I was telling Brenda earlier, when you push the button and a door just opens up somewhere on that bank, it's kind of fun, and it's like magic where you just click it and it opens and they get excited, and I'm sure they're excited for their package too. But the whole presentation really, I don't know. I think there's some innate thing that it brings happiness. You're like, oh, this is so cool. So it really was a great feeling down there. And I might as well squeeze it in here too. Admissions tours were coming through, and I just wanted to mention too, I think they were definitely keying in on how innovative it was, and I think it's a big selling point for just the university as a whole. I mean, students coming through who were high school students, really, it was very interesting.
Yeah, actually, I heard I was there for one of the tours, and I was probably a junior going to be a senior, but he basically stated that he never picked up his mail because he had a problem picking up his mail. But now he told them it's so easy to pick up your mail. You go to the counter, you swipe your card, and they give you your mail or any oversized package. So, and I actually saw a few of the students opening up the locker, and they were jumping up and down for joy that they had a package and how wonderful it was to get their package. So a lot of good experiences.
And you'll hear screams. And then, like Brenda said, there were a couple of students, actually returning students, that thanked us. They were like, thank you so much for getting rid of those mailboxes. I could never open mine, and I would always have to ask if you could get my mail. I never knew the combo. I didn't even, so that we were like, oh, sure, we're glad to get rid of them too, but you're welcome. And they're actually now picking up their letter mail.
Well, so we didn't touch on that, but we are sending notifications for letter mail. And I think an important thing to add is without delivering the pre-sort kind of junk mail, we really had a concern about sending notifications for having students get in line and come to the counter, and then they get handed a bank advertisement. So we were really being sensitive to what we were asking them to come get, if that makes sense.
And definitely a lot of them were first class, and they were, you could tell that they were some kind of, card or something from family, and they really were looking forward to getting that as well.
I have a few more questions that popped up while we're having a conversation here. One, this might be for you, Brenda. Are those cameras on the top of each locker bank?
So we can do cameras through Luxor One, but Bucknell wanted to do their own camera system, and yes, they are cameras on top of each locker bank. And Bucknell has their own security system that they installed here to keep an eye on the lockers.
Brenda, can I add, the question might also be about the black circles that are above each cabinet. Those are, if that's the question, those are actually manual openers. So if you need to open the doors below that black dial, you can actually do that manually. The university actually put these on a backup generator supply so that we won't need that, but we still have used those when we were wrapping and other cases if we need to troubleshoot and we want to open some doors pretty quickly. So if that's what they were asking about, that's what that is.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I like about Luxor One, because there's some other units that we've put in, and if there is no power and there's no way to get to that screen, you literally have to have somebody come in and work on the lockers to get them open. Where here, you can use that key code and open up all lockers and get packages if there are a power failure. So.
Thank you. I have another question here. After the third message for pickup and it is not picked up, by the end of the third day, the item is returned to sender. Did you have any complaints or issues for returning them?
So if it's going to the locker, they get one. We actually delay it 30 minutes from when we put it in, just so that we're not right on top of each other. But as soon as we put it in, they get an email and a text. 24 hours later, they get a reminder, and then it doesn't go back to sender, but after that 48 hours, we bring it back into the back, and then it gets in the workflow with our oversized packages and our letter mail where it's behind the counter, and then they get an email saying your package is now with Student Mail Services and you have to come to the counter. So we don't send anything back until 3 weeks, if that's clear.
Right. And the last question here so far is, how did you assess the quantity of each size locker needed?
I think that's a good question. I don't know if I'll answer it, but what we'll say is, in the beginning of the semester, we were getting a lot of large packages, obviously oversized, but a lot of even medium. So we ended up going with the units that had the mix. And what I'll say is a real plus for that is that in the beginning, we were heavy with bigger, and it only took about a week or two. And now we're getting so many flats and books and dresses and things that the small ones are, I think right now, Dana, would you say? We use a lot of the smalls.
Yes, and it seems like this incoming class year, they're getting a lot of care packages from home, and the medium flat rate priority and some of the other like standard box, like the mediums are great for those. And then in addition to, you can put a couple flat items, like Tom's saying, like smaller packages in with it.
And what's nice at this point is we talked already about pairing packages together. So what we typically do is we load, when we're taking a cart out, we try to load the larger ones first to give you a better opportunity for putting other packages with them. So sometimes I think we've seen as many as like 6, 7, like you can really fit a lot of smalls into a large or a medium. They're pretty deep. I think they're 22 inches deep, 15 or so inches wide, and then the height is all that changes. So I'm really impressed with it. Whoever did it did their homework, because the boxes fit very nicely.
Another quick question.
Yeah, and right now, just it's around 60%, 65% are small, and definitely they use all of their smalls as well. So it is a good mixture, having a little bit of everything. But still, 60% of all the lockers are small, which is the biggest population of packages.
It fits more than you'd think.
Yes.
Great. And last question here, what is the size of your labor force? Students and employees?
Oh.
Well, we weren't sure. So Tom had said, well, we should get, as many hands on deck as we can, being that it's new, being that it's the start of the semester. So we have a lot of returning students. And then we had obviously some that graduated and some that are abroad. So we had to hire about 6 or 8. And currently we have 22 students. So we're kind of assessing and maybe flip-flopping or just reducing the number in the afternoon. And then in the morning, thanks to Brynka, we have 2 scanning stations now to receive in. So ideally, what's going to be great if we can get the student staff is to have at least 3 or 4 people at each scanning station in the morning. So morning hours are key to just process, and fill lockers. And then have someone be taking the packages out to the locker. So we're just kind of trying to get the feel for that right now.
And we have 2
So how about
full-time.
the full-time staff, though? There's 2, right?
two, and then we have a contract station, USPS contract station with one of our staff members employed in there. So we do pull her often. So 2, 3 sometimes as well.
Okay, great. That's it for the questions. We'll move on.
So now we're going to look at some of the data that has been pulled from really the first week that was started. So can you talk about the pickup by hour for the first week, which is basically the week that they all started
Sure.
school,
So,
correct, Tom?
Right. So yeah. So we wanted to just kind of track, and this is a whole week's worth broken down into every hour that it was picked up. So what I wanted to look at, and maybe the key thing here is, well, let me just describe. So the orange is picked up by the locker, the blue is at the counter, and the purple is the mail folders. Now, I bet if we looked at this data today, I know the blue lines are going to be very low, almost non-existent, because we're putting everything to the lockers now. But this was a very busy week. But the key thing to look at, I think, here is our window opened at 11:30 and closes at 5:30. So what I was trying to see here is, how did that impact what packages were picked up outside of those hours? Because to me, that's all a win. So when at the bottom here, for that week, 8% were picked up before 11:30, and 12% were picked up after, it's actually after 6. So I gave a little extra cushion to the counter. So for me, 20%, I mean, that was a big number I didn't expect. So you can see after 5:30, the orange is quite a bit of packages that were picked up when we normally would have been closed. So I think that's a big win and a really good selling point for these lockers.
Okay, the next slide is packages, no letter mail. So let's talk about that.
Sure, we did break this up into 2 slides. So this is a year over year by week, and don't strain to look at it too hard. But what it shows is that the blue is our last academic year, and the orange is where we currently are now, at least through August. September's not complete. So what I just wanted to see was our packages that we received. So I can see already, I think we're about 10% higher than even last year about. So what it showed me was that we received a lot of packages. And I think, I'm not sure with that increase how we would have done it without the lockers, because our space was very tight. So for us to be able to get 500 or more with us being able to pair some together, that really helped. It was still chaotic because just the nature of it, but it really helped to be able to get those out of our backspace. Now the other one is letter mail, and we wanted to note that because we are processing letter mail through Brynka instead of just throwing them into a mailbox that's dedicated to that student. So there is some time involved in putting that in the system. So this does just show kind of more like Brynka touches, how many things that we have to put through Brynka. So that does show a greater increase. This last slide here, or last data slide, does show by week what our pickup rates were, and we broke it into 2-hour response, 4, 8, and over 8. So the first few weeks, the students aren't all back yet, so those rates are pretty high in the over 8-hour response. But I think one other selling point for the lockers is that we were able to get, as you can see, our over 8-hour response rate has really gone down, and if you chunk 2-hour and 4-hour together, we're really at almost 50% picked up in 4 hours. So that's another thing to look at when you're seeing how many packages are coming in and how many lockers do you anticipate needing, because you can kind of see a better sense of how quickly they get turned around. And we hope to keep collecting this throughout the year, so that we are brand new. This is only our however many weeks into it, so it is a new process for us as well.
So, and Dana, when you are pulling after the 48 hours, what kind of percentage are you seeing that you actually have to return back to the mail services? And then they go into that process of waiting for 3 weeks?
I'm not very good at percentages, but today and yesterday, there were 6 yesterday and 5 today that got pulled from locker to be behind counter. So I don't know.
Yeah, literally it's about 1%. It's about 1%. So literally it's a very low percentage that you actually have to pull from the lockers to go back. So that's go ahead, Tom.
A key point to that also is, I think in the beginning we were so busy, we just kept loading and loading, and I don't know how great we were at pulling immediately, but I think when we started to pull them, then the students, because it does say in their email that they're going to be pulled. I'm not entirely sure they read the whole email. I mean, I'm pretty sure they don't. So I think when we started to pull and when we had a rack coming back from the lockers, it really got a lot of attention. So I think by pulling them, your response rates are going to increase because I think they have the anticipation that that's their locker or it's going to stay in there. So when they know it's only there for 2 days even, that might also address why our pickup rates are getting better.
So the picture here, obviously it's not just those that are working in mail services. What is this team?
So this was most of the team that had to do with, so the student mail team is on here, Dana is on here, and Mindy and Monica, student mail services. And then some of our print team, this was a whole group. It was a great shot. I was really proud of it. This was part of the team that put the graphics on. Christy turned the graphics into things that worked on the lockers themselves. So it was I would say it was we were lucky maybe to have the capabilities to do it, but it was a great project that we were able to pull people from different areas, work together. We try to do as much as we can, and it was a big project, and I'm really proud of it. So we're really proud of the team.
There's print in there. There's courier.
Yeah, courier, mail couriers, facility staff in there that helped. I mean, it was challenging, but really fun.
It was definitely a team effort and a great job by all. So I really want to thank you for joining us today. I think it was very informative. I hope everyone that signed up is, if they have any questions, obviously you can email us at info@brynka.com. And if you want to get a hold of Tom, I know you can let us know and we can get that information to you as well. If you want to get a hold of Tom or Dana, we can send it to info@Brynka and we can work with you in getting that information if you have any additional questions. So one of the things that there's a lot of universities that wanted to see this presentation. So Tom and Dana have graciously stated that they would help us one more month. So at the end of October, we're going to change the time at 11 a.m. the last Thursday of the month and do one more Brynka Beacon with the Bucknell experience. And then we may have a few more additional comments, additional report and information. And so we'll see you next month. Any more questions, Joe?
No more questions. And I just want to let everyone know that tomorrow you'll be receiving via email this presentation as well, so you can have it for your review.
So again, thank you so much, Tom and Dana. I really appreciate all of your time and effort with this. It was a great project and fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And if I can add one last thing, I would just say if someone's close by with the locker system, or if you're close to us, it really pays to see it. It was hard to envision it until we actually saw it in action.
And if you need any feedback on service and support from Brynka or Luxor, give me a call. They've been great.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, that concludes today's webinar, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next month, Thursday, October 31st at 11 a.m.